So hello everyone, welcome back to another our photochemistry lecture series, and this is class 3. And in this particular class we are talking about the Norrish type 1 reaction. That means we are entering into our photochemistry of carbonyl compounds. So in our previous discussion we are talking about the basics of photochemistry, photochemical laws, Jablonski diagrams, and photosensitization and photochemistry of alkenes. So now we are entering into our photochemistry of carbonyl compounds. So in photochemistry of carbonyl compounds, there are mainly three segments that we have to study. The first one is the Norrish type 1, second is the Norrish type 2, and the Patent-Noguchi reaction. And this particular three reaction is very important for your exam purpose because mostly questions come from these three reactions, that is Norrish type 1, Norrish type 2, and Patent-Noguchi reactions. So today we'll begin with our discussion with the Norrish type 1 reaction. So first let us understand that what is the Norrish type 1 reaction. Norrish type 1 reaction that is involve the cleavage of carbonyl compounds alpha carbon bond. This is very important, the highlighted one. So you have to remember this, that the Norrish type 1 reaction involves the cleavage of a carbonyl compound alpha carbon bond upon UV light exposure. And its result, formation of two radicals. One is the alkyl radical and one is the acyl radical. Okay. So first let us understand that what are the ketones or the carbonyl compounds that actually shows Norrish type 1 reaction. Norrish type 1 process given by three type of ketones. That's very important. So the three types are, first, saturated acyclic ketones are show Norrish type 1 reaction. Saturated cyclic ketones also show Norrish type 1 reaction. And beta gamma unsaturated ketones are also shows Norrish type reaction. Now, for saturated acyclic ketone, the Norrish type 1 reaction basically encountered in a gas phase and decarbonization takes place. So in the next slide, I will show the reaction and then you will understand that what actually saying here. So basically in Norrish type reaction, there is a two type of processes there. First one is the primary process, and in this particular primary process, alpha cleavage takes place. And the secondary process is basically depending upon the medium. If the medium is gas, so mainly the decarbonization takes place. And if the medium is a solution medium, then intermolecular hydrogen absorption takes place. So this is a medium dependent, but for the every cases, whether it is a solution phase or the gas phase reaction, the primary process is always alpha cleavage. For example, you can see here, this is particular a ketone compound, or you can say a carbonyl compound. Now, this particular bonds, this bond or this bond, are called the alpha bonds because this is the alpha carbon. So, in case in presence of photochemical condition, this particular bond initially breaks down. Now, there is also a regioselective case is there, but before that, we have to understand that first this particular alpha bond breaks apart and only one alpha bond actually breaks to form two different radicals. One, this is called the acyl radical and this is called the alkyl radical. Now I am talking about the regioselectivity. So the alpha cleavage regioselectivity, this alpha cleavage is actually depend on the alkyl radical stability. That means this particular radical stability is determined the regioselectivity of Norrish type 1 reaction. Okay. For example, see here, this is another acyclic saturated carbonyl compound, or we can say ketone. Now here this bond is also an alpha bond, this bond is also an alpha bond. Now if this particular cleavage takes place, the black one, then you will get a tertiary alkyl radical and a corresponding acyl radical. And if the red line cleavage alpha cleavage takes place, then you will get a acyl radical and a primary alkyl radical. So as I already discussed that the regioselectivity is depend upon the alkyl radical stability. So as we know that tertiary alkyl radical are much stable over the primary alkyl radical, and that's actually detects the regioselectivity here, that this particular black line alpha cleavage is much more favored in terms of Norrish type 1 reaction over this. That's why it is written here that this particular black alpha cleavage is H nu favored, whereas the red arrow signifies this particular pathway is not favored in case of Norrish type reactions. Now, let us talk about the secondary process a little bit. So, as I already discussed, the secondary process is a solution reaction medium dependent phenomena. Like if it is a gas phase reaction, then decarbonylation takes place or recombination takes place. Otherwise, in the solution phase, basically intermolecular hydrogen abstraction takes place. So as I talk about the first one, the decarbonylation and recombination. So for decarbonylation, the primary process is same for everyone. Like initially the alpha cleavage takes place in presence of photochemical condition to form this particular acyl radical and an alkyl radical. Now, in gas phase, what happened that this particular carbonyl are actually removed from the acyl radical part, and this is called the decarbonylation. And after decarbonylation, we got our new alkyl radical and a CO, carbon monoxide, and it is actually removed from the mixture or from the reactions. Now, this resulting radical that is generated from the acyl radical. So this radical and the previously generated alkyl radical by generating via alpha cleavage, this two radical is now recombined to give the new alkene species. And this particular pathway is followed in the gas phase. When the reaction happened in the gas phase reaction, this pathway is follows, and so we got this particular compound and carbon monoxide. So first the decarbonylation takes place, and then the recombination of the leftover radicals takes place. So this is the one process. Now, if the your reaction happen in the solution phase, then this particular process is not that much favored. At that time, actually, intermolecular hydrogen abstraction takes place. Now, intermolecular hydrogen can be abstracted by two pathways. First pathway is here, that is shown here, that the alkyl radical is here. That alkyl radical hydrogen is captured or abstracted by the acyl radical. So what happened that this particular acyl radical actually captured the intermolecular hydrogen present in the alkyl radical, and then this will goes there, and here a new radical and form, and these two radical actually recombine to give a alkene species and their corresponding aldehyde. And this particular process is only possible when the alkyl radical have at least one beta hydrogen. This is very, very important. Like if this particular resulting alkyl radical doesn't have any beta hydrogen, then decarbonylation takes place. Since this particular radical have one beta hydrogen, which is actually captured by the acyl radical, and then this type of product has been observed. Now, a vice versa intermolecular hydrogen abstraction is also takes place, where the intermolecular hydrogen abstraction takes place from the acyl radical to a alkyl radical. So what happened that this is our acyl radical and this is the alpha carbon. If the alpha carbon contains a hydrogen there, then what happened, the alkyl radical are actually captured the alpha hydrogen from the acyl radical, and thus actually resulting to form a ketene species and alkene right now. In the previous case, the alkene actually formed, and here the alkene form as well as a ketene form. And in the solution phase, these two reactions are actually majorly observed. Like initially the ketene formation in this part, when the hydrogen captured from the acyl radical, then ketene formation takes place. Otherwise, if the hydrogen actually captured from the beta carbon of the alkyl radical, or we can say the beta hydrogen of the alkyl radical, then alkene and aldehyde has been formed. Now let us talk about the cyclic system once. Now rate of alpha cleavage, that is the primary process. For the cyclic case, it is faster than acyclic system due to the reducing ring strength. Like all the rings are having their own ring strength. So to reduce the ring strength, the alpha cleavage rate will be higher in the case of cyclic system in compared to acyclic one. Okay, so now this is our compound, and now it can go via any pathway because there is no regioselectivity is here. So initially the alpha cleavage takes place and we got this particular compound. Now in presence of gas condition or gas phase reaction, what happened that decarbonylation takes place, and after decarbonylation we got this radical. Now this radical has two fates that actually here, but I want to show the mechanistic pathway. So this also have one hydrogen, actually it had two hydrogens. Now one thing it can do, that this radical will takes one hydrogen from here and makes this radical here, and now these two radicals are actually combined to give the alkene compound, and this is the minor one. And also the another possibility for this particular reaction is this: after decarbonization, this particular radical is there. Now these two are actually recombined to generate the cyclopentane, and this is the major for the gas phase reaction. Now if we talk about the other scenario where the photochemical condition in solution phase takes place, then what happened that initially the alpha cleavage takes place, and after that it has actually two possibility. It actually has two possibility. Now what happened that this is the acyl hydrogen, and this is the alkyl part hydrogen. Now if this particular radical is actually taking up the alkyl part hydrogen, then what happened that aldehyde form takes place, and here a double bond takes place. So this particular product has been observed. But if this particular radical, the alkyl radical, is actually captured this particular hydrogen, then a ketene formation takes place, and we got this particular compound. So this is the ultimate summary of the Norrish type 1 reaction. So with this we have to end this particular class. In the next class we are talking about more about cyclic system, and we talk about the solvent effects. So thank you for listening.